Hey, guys. So I got a question in from a client, Peter. Actually, a few questions around the whole lending side of what I do and why I think it's an important part of any private equity investor's portfolio. What we're talking about is essentially switching your mindset from thinking about things from a retail investor's perspective and starting to think about it from a wholesale perspective. We all know that anytime you go further up the supply chain, you're going to get a better deal. So, if you go to a gas station and you buy something, you buy some food, some snacks, or whatever, chips, let's say, you're going to pay a higher price than if you go to Costco and you may buy a box, but you're going to get each individual bag of chips at a much lower price. Now, if you go even further back and you go to the manufacturer, you can get an even better deal on each bag. So that's essentially what we want to do is go back in the supply chain so that we can get higher returns as an investor. When you go to a etrade.com or go to a bank, what you're getting is a retail deal. Now, it's more work to go back in the supply chain, but what that bank has done is that bank has said, okay, well, we're going to go out and we're going to find the loan that we want to make, and we're going to get a much higher return than than we give obviously to our retail investors. But the crazy thing is that return isn't just, we think, oh, they're making 7% and they're going to pay me 1%. That's not really what's happening. And I'll kind of explain some of those things, and it's a little bit complicated. So I may do a few videos on this. But when you go to E-Trade, same thing. They're going to a company and they're going to make a certain amount for helping to take that company public. They come to you, they sell those shares, they get paid a ton of money, and you get the maximum price as the retail investor. So what we're looking to do is go directly to companies and be the financing agent for those companies because we're going to get a much higher return. And at the foundation of all of this is the simple idea that if you are someone who values money, if you value money at all, then you want to maximize how hard your money works for you. And if you're putting in that money into retail things, it's just like buying chips every day at the gas station. It may not be that big a difference at the beginning, but over time, that's going to make a huge difference in the amount that you pay versus what you would have gotten by going direct to Costco or going to the manufacturer. So we want to make that. We want our money to make that, not just the bank. It's very interesting to me when you think about, they say things like in real estate, more millionaires have been made in real estate than any other thing. But when you look at the money, it's interesting that the banks make way more money off of real estate than investors do. So, if you look at the fact that, okay, a piece of real estate may appreciate 3% or whatever, a bank is charging 7% every single year for that money. They're also going to get paid up front, maybe a few points, 2-3%. So that first year, they're going to make 10%. So you've got 3 years of appreciation just to make up what they've made in the first year, and then you're paying that 7% every single year. So they're guaranteed they're going to get their money. And then when you multiply that by the fact that they're getting principal back, and then they reinvest that principal into other deals, so now that initial principal is actually making 14% on an annual basis, 20% on that first year basis, the money becomes very, very serious. And I say it all the time. You want to be watching institutions. The thing that I say is there's a reason that every major city in America, when you go to their downtown, the biggest buildings are the banks. The most money are made by the banks. And so it's really interesting to me. And this has been a mindset for me as well as I look at things. I'm buying a business and, we get a loan on it. I remember doing an SBA loan. I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to make this amount of money and I'm making this amount of money and you don't do any of the work. It's the same thing in real estate. So it's so funny as we're still thinking like retail investors. A business buyer is a retail kind of thing. Real estate investor is a retail kind of thing. Where the source of all of this, what makes all of this work, is Wall Street, is banks. That is for anything that's related to finance, making money, investing. That is where that is kind of the manufacturer. So you want to go back and watch those people. You want to watch what the institutions are doing, not what some individual on Instagram is doing. And that includes me. Like, I'm paying attention. I'm learning from institutions. I don't want to learn from some dude. I don't want to learn from some guy who runs seminars. I don't want to learn some guy who's teaching about Facebook marketing. I want to figure out what the manufacturer is doing with their money, what their strategy is, and how do I take that and implement it into my business. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this. It's something that I've been doing for, just as a side thing in my deals that hasn't been a real focus until in the most recent year, actually going through some accounting stuff and looking at like the returns. Like, okay, because I want to put my money to work, I would loan on deals, and I partner with a company to loan through them on deals and that kind of thing. So it's another way to create income. And I think for a lot of folks, the difference between investing in wholesale and investing in retail is how quickly you retire. If you're going to the bank and earning 1% as opposed to building your own business to make 7-10%, I'm going to interview one of my partners in deals who, I'm investing. We'll do some loans together, and he's somebody that I got started doing this, which is really cool. And he's lending at 17%, and so we're partnering on some deals together. So I asked him, hey, I've got a lot of interest in talking about this. Would you want to come on and do an interview? And he agreed. So we're setting that up. But we're going to talk about how that whole thing works. But I want to go through some of Peter's questions, and then just let you guys know this is something that is a big part of my strategy going forward. Just because looking back over the last 10 years, it's just been a side thing. I've come to the realization that wow, like this produces real returns. Like I said, there's a reason that banks have the biggest buildings. There's a reason that Wall Street makes trillions of dollars. That's the manufacturer of our space. And, I want to go more, I want to go higher up the supply chain and do more of these because the returns are really incredible. And it's another stream of income that you're able to reinvest that most people just aren't taking advantage of. The epiphany for me was the same one that I had 20 years ago, and realizing like, oh, I can just go buy income when you buy business. Well, this is really the same thing. What Suresh, who I'm going to have on a video that I'll release, he didn't start with any money. He's raising capital. He's taking that capital at a low percentage, 7%, and then loan it out at a 17% and making that arbitrage the same way that a bank does. And that's essentially creating money out of thin air. I'll wait for this. helicopter to go by. So that's one of those things of creating money out of thin air. And, he doesn't have to, like I always say, he doesn't have to go and become a Facebook marketing expert. He doesn't have to become an Instagram expert. Doesn't have to try to build up a big following and try to make his name known everywhere, because everybody's always looking for money. It's not a difficult thing. And then other people are always looking to make more money. There are plenty of people that don't want to do the work, but don't want to make 1%. They're happy making 6 or 7%. So it's this unique opportunity that the weirdest thing for me about all of this is how we don't look at who's making the most money and then do those things. Like if you're in your town, for some reason, we're more enthralled with the person in our town that is well known and may own a restaurant and or some business in town, and they're growing it and they're in the newspaper and all that stuff. And they're kind of on Front Street. I'm talking about it, everybody, they're popular, da-da-da. And meanwhile, there could be this little small community bank off to the side. President doesn't want anybody to know what he's doing, who he is. He doesn't have an Instagram following. And he's making way more than the guy with the popular business. And so, man, just lift the wool, guys, lift the wool. All right, so let's see what questions Peter had. He says, mind-blowing topics in your STD video. Looking forward to more. Yes, absolutely. If you haven't checked out that video, you could probably find it by searching Ace Chapman STD, which is pretty funny. Let's see. All right, so I got to get this screen so I can see his questions. All right. Your latest videos are killer. In response to the STD video, maybe sometime you could do a video going more in depth about the lending part of your business. Specifically, did you build a fund dedicated to lending? So this is something that is interesting, is that a lot of the lending that I have done has been either me borrowing at a low rate and lending at a high rate, or just my own money. We've done with one of the guys that I partnered on with the most recent fund. He's done some of this lending as well. And so we've partnered on lending, but we haven't built a fund specifically for lending. I do think that would be an interesting thing to do at some point, but it's not something we're doing or aggressively going after right now. The next thing is, how do people find you? So obviously, with borrowers, I'm doing deals. A lot of people come to me to invest in deals and that kind of thing. And sometimes I'll structure those as a little bit of equity, a little bit of lending. So I want to build those two parts of my portfolio. I don't want to just have equity. I don't want to just have a business. I want to have things that are producing income. I also don't want appreciation. Because whenever you've got an investment that is an income producing investment, you're taking money off the table consistently. So you're getting checks, you're getting deposits, you're taking money off the table. When you've got money that's 100% dependent on appreciation, you don't get to take that off. Nothing's paying you on a consistent basis. This is the thing. It's still the same philosophy. The same thing I talk about with Warren Buffett is the thing I'm talking about here, which is you want something that is paying you on a consistent basis. Lending is the best way to do that. And so even when I'm doing deals, I obviously get a lot of people that come to me. But this was even the case, 10 years ago, before I was doing a lot of this stuff, is, you don't have to do be famous, not famous, but be online. The best deals are going to be just networking. Maybe it is a tight-knit group of business people. It could be a Kiwanis Club. It could be Rotary Club. It could be Chamber of Commerce. But all of those places are places that you can find deals and find decent deals that are worth doing. It's the same, but it's the same thing as buying businesses. We're saying no to 99 of these deals in order to do one. And then how you structure them, and same as when you're buying a business, how you structure the deal is everything. The paperwork that you do to put together the deal, all that is everything when it comes to these. How are you differentiating your business from other lenders? Lending is a interesting thing just because there's not competition. There's not a lot of competition, and there's so much demand. So unlike, you've got burgers. You think about, okay, everybody, just as many people want burgers as want money. But when you go around, like, there are all these places that are serving burgers and not that many places that are serving money. And a lot of those places, it's interesting as well, because especially when you look at Wall Street, and again, this is where you want to model how you structure these after, and the deals you do. But the cool thing is you can get creative. Banks aren't very creative in how they do things because it's very cookie cutter. Some of it is regulatory, but some of it's just the nature of what they do. So it needs to be very cookie cutter, because it's like a McDonald's. Like, hey, we've got a teller, we've got all these employees, they're going to make the decisions. But so they don't get creative. Wall Street is a better example because they get very creative. And they can make that work because they're doing larger deals. So the bank can't get creative because they're doing a lot of smaller deals. But the Blackstone, KKR, which actually is a side note, was reading an article in Forbes about KKR. And again, this is just, it's interesting when you see this stuff. Their lending side of their business is now just as big as their acquisition side of their business. For those who don't know, is they're kind of the original private equity fund that was going after LBO type deals and all of that. So just obviously, if you're in this space, again, you want to look at what the biggest people are doing. So that was one of those other clues where I'm like, okay, maybe I need to pay more attention to this as I read that and saw what they're doing. But the cool thing with us, and probably the way that I differentiate, is combining those two things. So being able to be as creative as a Wall Street firm or investment bank, but doing smaller deals like a bank does. And then I'm going to do another one. This video is getting kind of long, but one of the last questions he asked is, what steps do you take to minimize risk? There are a ton that you want to do. A big part of that is, how you source the deals. You want to do due diligence just like you would if you're doing deals. So it's very similar, and this is why it's kind of one of those neat things. It's very similar to the deal maker skill set, but you're doing something where you're creating this arbitrage where you're getting money at a low percent, 4, 5, 6%. You're making points. You're lending it out at 14, 15, 16%. And in some cases with offline deals, you're getting some assets to back it as well. So, one of the ways you minimize risk, I did a deal with a guy who owns a plumbing, neat concept for a plumbing company. And, but I basically had a lien against the truck. And so, it was worth 50% more than what my loan was. It was completely paid off. Just those kinds of things. It's thinking creatively as to how you do these. Do them on internet deals where the cash flow makes sense. So you want to make sure that you're making smart deals. I don't do anything in consumer or anything like that. I want to be able to make money by helping somebody else make money, and that's when you can get those high rates. Somebody who's going to get a 50% return a year on your money. Let's say you're helping to finance a business, and somebody's getting a business at a 2 multiple. They found a great deal, and they're going to make 50% a year, even if they're paying all cash. They're probably going to get some financing, so they're probably going to make 60, 70% a year. And so when you say, hey, I'm gonna help you get this deal done, I want 17, like, that's not a tough discussion. When somebody who isn't thinking like an investor, they're like, oh, they're a consumer, it's just a totally different mentality. And they're like, okay, no, like, can I afford to pay this 17? That kind of thing. It's a different debate. All right, we're at 20 minutes. I appreciate you watching the video. This is a little bit of a different thing, but I like to tell you guys really what I'm doing and what I'm focused on. But you know, if it's something that you're not interested in, let me know. If you are interested in, you know, how to create those arbitrage situations, how to get, you know, turn these even a 12% loan into a 20-30% return annually. Some of those things are some of the things I have planned, and you know, I'm probably going to end up taking my private clients kind of through this process to add this to what they're up to. But let me know if this is something you're interested in. Click that like button if it's something you found valuable, and feel free to subscribe as well. Thanks so much for checking out the video.